So you're wanting to edit the Ninjago Wiki, but you don't know where to start. Greetings, Ninja. I'm Ronin Trainerkn of the Ninjago Wiki, and this is NW Editing for Beginners. Before we get started, please be aware that this video is a visual representation of my guide, which is hosted as a blog on the wiki, and it's also linked in the description. If you need to see a written explanation at any point, please refer to the original guide. Before we get into the specifics of the Ninjago Wiki, I highly recommend that you graduate first from FANDOM University. This is FANDOM's universal tutorial. If you're brand new to wiki editing in general, I recommend that you take this course first. We'll still be exploring some of the same topics it teaches, but not too many, so do this to get a background knowledge. Now this fancy-dancy page you saw here a few seconds ago before we went to FANDOM University is the Manual of Style. The first thing that editors need to read when entering the Ninjago Wiki is this page, the Manual of Style, also known as the MOS. These are the rules and guidelines for editings that should be referenced by old and new editors alike. We plan to release a video going over the MOS soon, which will be linked in the description. There's all these different subpages for different formats for different page types. It's a really useful tool to reference. Until we have a video for that, please take the initiative to read it yourself. This tutorial is going to include a lot of editing components. For that, it's going to be pretty useful to have a Sandbox page. What this is it is a page just for you that you can do whatever you want on within the bounds of the rules. So it's a pretty fun spot to try things out, try out new code, and learn and teach yourself. If you want to make one, what you have to do is go to the three dots near the search, click Add New Page, and then title it. And this is important. You start with user, and then you put a semicolon, then your username. Mine is Trainerkn, so I'd write Trainerkn. And then a /. This creates a subpage, so it's like an extension of an existing page. And then you write Sandbox. Then, I already have one, so I'm not going to do it, but you would push Next. And that will create your Sandbox page. And this will be a pretty good spot for you to follow along with this tutorial. Alright, it's time to hop into it. So what we're going to do is we're either going to push E on our keyboard or push this button right here, edit. Make sure you have a registered account. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about images. Now, images you should already know how to upload because of FANDOM University. However, we're going to talk about on the Ninjago Wiki how we use them in galleries, in body text, and in info boxes. So let's start with galleries. Galleries are used in the gallery section found on almost every page, and some examples can be seen on screen. Now you can insert them in the editor by hovering over this button here called Insert and then clicking Gallery. This brings up this cool menu. It'll show you all your recent uploads. So you should usually be able to use this, otherwise you can search for it directly since all the files have names. So let's say I wanted to include one of maybe some Spinjitzu burrowing here. And you could also put in a caption. So for this one, maybe I'll put in a caption, Spinjitzu burrowing, and then I'll highlight it and Control K to link it. I could also push that little link icon. No punctuation at the end. There's also other options to add a caption to the overall gallery, which we never really do. Or you could alter the width of the image if it's too large or too small. Then you would push insert once you're ready. But if we wanted to add more images to the gallery so that there are multiple, maybe I wanted to add this image and I wanted to add this image here. Right? And I have these three images. Then what you do is you could push insert and it will create a gallery. Notice that we have our caption here. So galleries are used quite frequently. Next we're going to talk about the info box images. So almost every main space page will have an info box, and that's this kind of informational graphic on the right, which has organizational tables with little fun facts and information bytes inside each field. So what you'll notice is when you click it when you're in the visual editor, which is what we're editing in now, and you push edit on this template, it'll pull it up and it'll show you all these things called fields. It looks a little bit intimidating, but don't be daunted. Okay, so there are multiple fields where you can insert information, and if you don't insert any, it won't go onto the box. So if you don't put anything in for air date, it won't go onto the box at all. It'll just stay out of it. But one of the fields is image. Now, by default, it goes to noimage.jpg on our wiki, which is kind of that image we saw before. It's like a placeholder. Now, if we wanted to put in an image to represent the topic of this page, which is an episode called The Spell at the Waterfall, we could put in an appropriate image, and the one for this would be what I just pasted in. So what's important is when you're putting an image into an info box, you name it directly, and it's case sensitive, so get the capitals and the spaces right, and make sure you have the file extension. This one is a .png file. If it's a JPEG or WEBP, then it would be important you include those file extensions instead. Once you got the title right, you can push apply, and if it goes in, like it just did here, that means it worked. Congratulations. Alright, next we're going to talk a little bit about pictures in the body paragraphs. So what you'll see here is these paragraphs here have some pictures that are alternating between the left and the right with informational captions that reveal some context to the text here, which is an episode plot in this instance. So there was an image here that I removed temporarily just so that I can show you how to add it. So what you do is you go to where you put your cursor where it should apply. So it's fine to put it here at the top by the heading because it'll automatically go towards this paragraph. Then you push the image icon right here, and then you search for your media. This file is called SATW, which stands for Spell at the Waterfall, which is the name of the episode. And then this is the 34th picture that believe it was Lightmods. Yeah, Lightmods captured. Then you push use this image, and then on episode pages, usually you'll put in context in the captions, and you won't put any punctuation at the end. So this is the explanation that was here before. I just pasted it in. Normally you write it from scratch. Typically we'll alternate our pictures between left and right. This one, it defaults to the right, and then I'm going to put it to the left instead because the next one here is to the right. And then there's an option to wrap text around the item. And I'm going to wrap text around it so that it doesn't get interrupted or go and get pushed between the different paragraphs. Then I'm going to insert, and it looks like it inserted correctly. So when it saves, it's not going to look as chunky like this. When we save the page, it will turn out correctly, more like these. And that is all you need to know about the 3 uses of images on the wiki. Next, we're going to talk about citations. So citations are cited sources of information that are reputable, and on the wiki they're used when seemingly random or unsupported facts are found within a page, as well as when a concept needs evidence to be deemed trustworthy. For example, grabbing external citations from head writers of the show, such as Tommy Andreasen or Doc Wyatt, is usually something that we use citations for. There are 2 types of citations. There's going to be internal citations and external citations. Now, the internal ones are citations that link to pages that already exist on the wiki. For example, for this first statement, Kai is the elemental master of fire. That's pretty obvious, but let's say it wasn't, and we needed a citation to support it. What we would do is we would go look for a source on the wiki if it's an internal citation, such as, in this case, the Kai page. This one in the first line says Kai is the current elemental master in Ninja of Fire. So, since that supports what we had to say here, and we needed to cite that page, we would come up here where it says Cite, we would click New Reference, and then we could either push this link button or push Control or Command, if you have a Mac, K. So Control or Command K. And then you go on the Ninjago Wiki tab, and you search for the page. In this case, it's Kai. It should automatically link and input the name of the page, and you could just push Insert. It generates this little thing called this little box with a 1 in it, and it'll number your citations as you go. So the next one we do is going to have a 2. And when you save the page, which we won't in this case, but if you were to save it, there would be a list of references at the very bottom of the page that would, if you clicked one of these, not only would you get a little reference pop up like this, because we have a plugin, but it would also whisk you down to the bottom of the page where the link is, where you could check out the citations. Anyways, the second one is an example of when we would use an external citation. So this one says, Trainerkn made a series of posts on Blue Sky providing context on his creation of the Chiron Angrax. This is true. I won a LEGO contest where one of my creations was featured in a LEGO product. And so I wanted to put some information in for people to draw from if necessary, and to cite to later, which is what we're doing now. So what we would do is, you can't see this, but I would go up to, you see my cursor goes up here to where the browser is, and I'm going to either do Control or Command C on the URL, and then I'm going to go back to where I need to cite. I'll do the same thing. I'll push cite, new reference. For an external citation, what we're going to do is, instead of pushing Control V, notice how this creates display text. This is not linked, and it doesn't have the URL. It's not citable. So instead of pushing Control or Command V, we're going to push Control or Command, depending on which one you have, Shift and V. Now adding the Shift to that combination actually pastes it as plain texts, so it'll actually paste the link in the URL. However, it's not actually linked yet, and this won't automatically link. So what you have to do is you have to highlight it, and you either push the link button, or you push Control and K, or Command. Control or Command plus K. And what that does is, oh, it undid it. It will automatically link it. Now it's blue, see? And then you can insert it, and it creates the two, and it has the correct link, and this will go to the right place. Template time. All right. So on the Ninjago Wiki, there are, on all wikis in general, typically there is a place where you can find pre-made templates. So these are usually informational for notice. Some are decorative for user pages. Some of them are informational. Some of them are for navigation, like these boxes that link to different pages. So if you want to use a template on a page, if you're using the source editor, which we're going to learn how to use later, we use these double curly brackets to indicate it's a template, and we put the correct name in. But since we're using the visual editor for now, I'm going to show you how we would go about doing that. So let's say I wanted to include this template here called No Leaks. This is a template that we put at the top of content that has leaked information to remind editors not to include any leaked information on the wiki. Only officially released information instead. So what we do is we keep in mind the capitalization and spacing. It looks like there's a space between no and leaks, and the N and the L are capitalized. So let's keep that in mind. If we wanted to include this on a page that needs the template, and the MOS basically dictates where certain templates get used. So spoiler content would have a spoiler template on it, which we're going to get to here in a second. But let's start with pushing Insert, Template, and the example we're using is No Leaks. There it is. Now notice, this has no parameters, no fields to fill out. It's just a very straightforward, already pre-made template. Nothing for us to change. And there it is. But let's say we wanted one that actually has something to change. Look at this one under it, spoiler, right here. So, right here, notice where it says 1. Whatever we type in for field 1, when we put this template in, will replace this little bit here. So if we look at the grammar, this article contains plot details or images from blank. It looks like we need to input some kind of installment that information is relevant to. So it's called spoilers, so let's insert, template, spoiler, and then there's the 1. So we have to say, let's say it came from Season 4 of Dragons Rising. So Season 4 Dragons Rising. Okay. And maybe we'll even link it. So we'll put the 2 double brackets around it. That automatically links it according to source code. And then insert. There, see, now it's linked, and it is correct. So that's an example of a template that needs to be altered. Now, templates aren't only known as templates. Info boxes, which we talked about earlier with the images, are also forms of template. Templates are just basically pre-made code, whether it's decorative like this and for an informational reason, or even if it's for something like spoiler blur, which will actually blur words that contain spoiler content on the wiki. Templates encompass a very wide range of content, and this is just an example of how to insert and alter them. Well, we've had it pretty easy up till this point, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut your slack out, man. Because what we're going to do is we're going to change from the visual editor to the source editor. So what that does is when we're on a page, or when we're about to edit a page, you go to the 3 dots, or when you're already editing, you could go to this drop-down menu and click Source Editing. And wow, this looks pretty daunting. It may look complicated at first, but the source editor is actually much more functional. It gives you a better way to magnify an issue if you see an issue with a template or the way a page looks, and you can look at the very code behind it, see what's wrong, and fix it more directly. So instead of just seeing a problem, you're also able to see what's causing it, and you're able to fix it Additionally, this is a much more structured way of looking at the wiki, and you can streamline the formatting here to make it easier for yourself and others to read. So we're just going to break this down. Let's delete all this. Let us start anew. Okay. I'm going to tell you about some of the most basic but important components of source editing. I can't teach you all of it today, nor do I know all of it, but this will get you an important start in beginning to edit in source editor on the wiki. Let's start with links. Links are a double bracket and an end double bracket. So, if I wanted to link to the page Kai, I would type in the name of the page, which in this case is Kai, and I would end the link. Next, I'm going to tell you a little bit about templates. We already talked about what templates are just now. However, if we wanted to input them in source mode, instead of pushing insert and template and all that, another thing we can do is, if we already know what we want, such as maybe a section stub is a template, I could type in section stub with double curly brackets at the beginning and end. It's important to end your links and your templates with the end brackets. Now notice if we actually push preview, which is a pretty cool feature on source mode, it actually shows you what the page looks like before you save. So it looks like my input was taken correctly and it put in the correct template I wanted. That's an example of how to use a template. We could do the same one even that we had before, no leaks, like this. And it looks like that worked too. Okay, now we're going to talk about something a little bit more complicated with source editing, and that is, my dear friend, the pipe character. So that's that long line. Don't be confused for an L or an I. This is typically a character that shares a spot on your keyboard with the backwards slash, which is this one. So the pipe character is used for all kinds of things. So it's used in a lot of different templates as fields. So it kind of separates fields from each other. It's used in links, and I'm just going to show you just a few instances of it because it's used in a lot of spots. So let's say we wanted Kai to actually link to Nia, which we would never do this on an actual article, but just as an example. If we put between the two of these a pipe character, notice how Kai's text went black while Nia's stayed blue. So this here on the right, which is black within the brackets, is actually display text, and this is the link target page. So what that means is, when we preview, it will display Kai and it'll highlight blue, but when you actually see where it goes to the Nia page. So this is a pretty useful way. Let's say we wanted to link to Elemental Master. Like let's say inside a thing like Kai is in Elemental Master, like this. And I try linking it, but when I preview, I notice it. Oh, well, that actually works because there's a redirect. But normally there would be a red link if the page doesn't exist. The actual page is called Elemental Masters with plural. Notice that plural difference there with the S. So now when we preview, it would link to the correct spot, Elemental Masters page. So that's where the pipe character can be used for display texts in links. It can also be used, as we saw before, we saw the spoiler template, which we were using. But we know that there is a field called 1, which is the very first field. So if we put a pipe character in to separate the title to indicate to the code what template we're going for, and in place we put what we want 1 to be, which remember it was Season 4, Dragons Rising, and we wanted that to be linked. So we're going to link that with the double brackets, which we just learned, and then we're going to end that with the double curly brackets to end the template. And hopefully when I preview, oh, it looks like it tried automatically. Oh, no, I forgot the end parenthesis. See, you notice how it red linked? It's because I forgot that parenthesis. I just typed it in, and now it linked correctly. So if I push preview, there we go. It's the same thing as before. And you might think that this is longer or clunkier than just doing the other thing. And it might be for simpler templates like this, but for longer templates, it really helps when they're changed or when they're updated by other users and you have to go through to change them, to just edit one field at a time instead of having to click into every template. You can just go into the source editor. It's a lot faster once you get used to it. The last thing we're going to talk about the source editor is just some other basics. For example, when we vote, which we're going to talk about later on issues with the rest of the wiki, we usually create lists, and we can do that by creating a hashtag. And if I type here, let's call this example 1, and then I go down 1 and I call this example 2, notice how when I go into the preview, it numbers it automatically, 1, 2. So you can actually interrupt a list and go here and just put a hashtag in instead of having to change all the numbers. And that's pretty nifty. You could also put in a semicolon before to add a little bit of a break. Usually we use these for hat notes, which are clarifying lines at the top of a page. So if you put this semicolon in before a number, for example, it'll actually indent it. Notice how it's indented now, even though it restarted at 1. So the semicolon is a good example there. Another thing, bullet points. Bullet points can be made with asterisks. So if you put an asterisk in, and I'll call this one example 1 as well. Let's put another one in, but let's put 2 this time. Example 2. So this is just a way of creating bullet points right here. Notice how it created these bullet points, but because the second one had 2 asterisks, it actually indented it, kind of similar to what that semicolon did when we still had it here with the numbering hashtag. Finally, we're going to talk a little bit about the green tags. So these ones are used in wiki text code for a variety of things. So many things. Today we're just going to go over BR and gallery because those are some of the most impactful ones that you're going to see a lot as a beginning editor. So the first thing is I am actually going to go grab from down here in my existing. I saved some old signatures, which are ways to sign things you write so other people know who wrote what. So this here is a signature code. Normally, to sign things, you sign with 4 tildes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice what that does is it'll actually put in, that's my signature right here. This is my current one. This here is an old one. So we're going to use the old one as an example. Let's say, hello, this is Trainerkn, and below this line, not on the same one, there's my signature. Okay. And then let's put an enter space. Notice before, even though it looks like it's on a different line, it's still under 10, line number 10 right here. I'm going to push enter, and that puts it on line number 11. So now it is officially on a different line. But when I preview, look what happens. I said that it was not on the same line, but for some reason, it's on the same line. My signature is. So this is where one of the little green tag code tricks is put the all these that I'm referencing by green tag, by the way, are using the greater than and equal, the greater than and less than signs. So these two symbols. So the one I'm teaching you about now is called break, BR for short. So if you type in BR between these 2 symbols, it turns green, and that's how you know it worked. And what that does is now, instead of being on the same line, this actually is a way of changing the formatting and allowing you to control the spacing. So now it's actually on a different line. And you'll notice that even if we put them on the same line, we don't even have to put them on different lines. Even if we put 3 of these in, this is going to create 3 line spaces. Look, now it's even farther away. See? So BR is a pretty useful way, very nifty at changing some formatting around that didn't format the way you were expecting it or wanting it to be. So that is an example of BR. The only thing we're going to talk about left with source editing is the gallery with the greater than and less than symbols. So there are many examples, gallery is just one of them, where you need a beginning and an end. It's like telling the code, here's the beginning of my story, and here's the end of my story, so that it knows where to start and where to end. So here's gallery. Now when it sees gallery, it says, oh, well I don't need it to be told like these, notice down, oh right here I guess is where it was. Notice how this image here needed to be linked, like right here, or it needed to be coded and linked out. It needed a link and brackets and all that. Gallery doesn't need this file at the beginning. It doesn't need these brackets. It doesn't need the size unless you need to change the size. It will automatically make a gallery, just like our insert it's not in this, but insert gallery like we did before. Instead, you just need the image. So one of the images we used earlier was SATW34, and maybe I want to use that same image from above, the Woo Promo Headshot.png. So I'll do Woo Promo Headshot.png, kind of like that image above. These are just example images. Then, like we were discussing, to tell the code, hey, wait a second, this is the end of the gallery, what you do is you type in the same thing as before, but notice how it's not turning green. What's the difference between this one and this one? How can it tell the start from the end? The end has a / at the beginning. Now notice how it turned green? This / tells the code, wait a second, here is the beginning, and right here this slash is the end. Notice if we didn't have this here, the end turns red because it doesn't have a beginning corresponding to it. So now when we preview it, oh, I was supposed to type PNG for this, wasn't I? .png. Whoop. This is why we preview. If we make a mistake, we can look at it before saving instead of making multiple edits. And maybe it was a JPEG. Well, whatever. I forget what the extension of it was, but I am not looking into it now. The point is, it makes a gallery, and this is how that source code works. What you're going to see as you start editing pages, if you do it in Source Editor, it might be daunting at first, but by looking at the edits of other people and what other people have left on a page, and looking at the preview back and forth, you're going to learn a lot about the different parts of a page. One last thing I want to tell you actually is the heading sizes. The heading sizes are a way to control how the different sections are spaced and organized. So if you use two equal signs and then you have a title like this, that creates a heading. But then if you wanted to make a smaller one, under it, a subsection of it, we'll call this subsection, you could type 3. So basically the more you put on, let's say 4 even. Example text 1, 2, 3, 4. So notice how this goes 2, 3, 4. But the more equal signs you use on either side, the smaller the text gets. See? It goes from this large one to a slightly smaller subsection to a very slightly smaller subsection of that subsection. So this is a way to structure pages. And the way that you use these headings varies based on what the page type is and how the manual of style tells you how to use the headings. Anyways, that's just a brief introduction to source code. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to a staffer or myself, or look up resources online. There's a lot of information about this. Alright, it's time to talk about redirect and disambiguation pages. So I'm going to exit out of this and discard edits. I don't need to save that. But a redirect page is basically a friendly way of telling a user who's searching something, hey, this is a common search word, but that's not actually what the title of the page is. So here you go. This is the page you're looking for. For example, if I'm a user who doesn't know that the page is called Overlord for, well, the Overlord, and I instead call him the Dark Lord because that's a nickname, a redirect exists that redirects the user searching that to the Overlord page to help them out. So, Dark Lord. Notice, Dark Lord is not a page, but it does redirect to the Overlord. So we're going to learn how to make this. So if I were to look at this little note here and I click into Dark Lord, let's take a look at the code. This is a really great way of looking and learning source editing. So we're going to edit source. Okay, so it looks like it does a hashtag, which normally is a number, but in this context, it's colored a little bit differently. Notice how it's a lighter blue. So a hashtag redirect and then a link to the page it's targeting, the Overlord. For example, a page that actually exists is Rex. So normally the actual page uses the acronym, which has all the dots in between. This means that without the redirect, if you searched Rex, nothing would come up because it's expecting you to type rex.e or r.e.x. right? So in that way, redirects can be really useful for redirecting users who may not type in the very formal punctuation of the page. If we wanted to create a redirect, for example, if I wanted to call one, if I wanted to redirect one to my user page, which normally we don't do, but this is an example. Maybe I want to do ronin of the Ninjago Wiki, like this. What I would do now is push next, and then it starts to create this page. And it doesn't actually make it until you push save, so I'm not going to save it, but what you do is you're in Visual Editor, but you need to switch to source. So what you do is you switch to source, you do the same thing, hashtag redirect, I usually do all caps, then a space, and then the target page. So I would do user, because I'm a user, Trainerkn. Notice if I just search Trainerkn up here, nothing comes up. It's because the main space is all the articles, but everything behind the scenes has a different namespace. So for users, it would just be user semicolon, and then notice all my stuff comes up. So this would redirect, if I preview, to my user page. So if somebody searched Ronin of the Ninjago Wiki, they would get redirected to my page. So that's an example of a redirect. The next thing we're going to talk about are disambiguation pages. And a great example of that, I find, is the tournament of elements. Now if we look at this one, you can tell it's a disambiguation page because it'll have parentheses and say disambiguation. And that's a way of knowing, hey, I can click that and I could be given a useful key. So for very convoluted titles, such as Tournament of Elements, it could reference a ton of different things. It might refer to the season, the event, a set named after it, a game named after it, an activity book named after it, or even a different book that's not even an activity one, just a second book entirely. So it can mean a lot of things. Maybe I was looking for the set, but it keeps I keep getting sent to the season 4 page or the event page. So disambiguation page basically says, hey, you can click me, and I'm gonna make it so that you can look at a full list, and I will clarify which one's which, and you can find the page you're looking for. So this is yet another navigation technique for users. So to create one of these, it's pretty simple. You basically just create a new page, you add disambiguation to the title, and let's actually look at the source of this one. All you do is you bold it. I forgot to mention, you can italicize something by putting 2 apostrophes on either side, and you can bold it by putting 3 apostrophes on. So the typical format is you have to start by putting in the template disambig. We don't spell it the whole thing, and the D is capital, so disambig. That'll automatically put that little template up. Notice this blue thing? So it clarifies to a user what a disambiguation page is. Then you would say, title, blah, 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 may refer to, semicolon, and then you use the trick we learned with the asterisk to make the bullets, and you link to all the different things, and then to separate them from each other, you would put a little clarifying parentheses. So I can tell this one's the event because it says event in the parentheses. So that's an example of a disambiguation page. And, don't want to delete that. We're just going to cancel edits. That's an example of a disambiguation page, what it does, and how to make one. Alright, time to talk about moving pages. So moving pages sounds like you're doing something complicated with it, but ultimately it's basically just saying you're renaming it. So think about moving pages as renaming them. So to move a page, what you're going to do is we're going to go to the 3 dots of it, and we're just using this one as an example, and we're going to push move. So this one's called Card 1, Lloyd's EX Spinners in parentheses. Let's say the spinners wasn't supposed to be there. Maybe a user named it wrong, or you named it wrong, or maybe a vote just went through and people said that it needs to be changed to reflect new policy. Whatever the reason, let's say we needed to get rid of spinners. What you do is you go to the target, so the new title, and you make it what you need it to be. So in this case, we're getting rid of the spinners. Now notice there are different namespaces. A namespace is basically just telling you where it's going. Main is basically all of our 6,900 articles, right? But a talk page would be a talk page of a page. So if people are commenting on it, a user page would be like what we saw earlier with user Trainerkn with mine. Ninjago Wiki is like a project page where votes are held among other resources, and special pages, which I don't know if they're included on this, but special pages have a bunch of different tools. But they're all kinds of different namespaces. Normally, you're always going to move within the main. You're never going to really change between the two, but it is an option. Okay. The next thing is reason. I didn't cover it earlier, but when you save your edits, there's a space at the bottom of the page for you to write down clarifications of what you did. So it's called an edit summary. So you could say, I'm moving this page to remove spinners from the title. And that tells people, without them having to go look and investigate your edits, they can just see it and read it from your own words, what you did. And then they're not too skeptical, they're appreciative, and they get to have time saved, and they start to trust you more. It's a really good way to build communication, which we pride ourselves on. Another thing, and you can also set the reason. So in this case, we would just say a misspelled title for a page move. Now, these two are optional, but it's very important to pay attention to this top one. Bottom one is personal. It's up to you. That'll send you email notifications if things change on the page. However, this here is leave a redirect option. So we just learned about redirects. It's when you type something in and it sends you somewhere else, Dark Lord. So what this is saying is, should we leave a redirect behind? And it's checked by default for this. So it's basically saying anybody who looks up this title, should they get redirected to this one? We need to be very careful with this because it could create a lot of clutter that people in moderators will have to delete later on, and it would create a huge mess. Because in this case, if we were to search Card 1 Lloyd's EX Spinners, by the time we're done typing this would already appear as an option. right? So it's completely redundant to leave a redirect in this case. It would uncheck it. You might ask when an example of a redirect might be necessary. Let's say a source dragon of motion. Let's say they got named Bob. Let's say it was canonized by like a show creator. So maybe if we were moving instead source dragon of motion instead of card 1 Lloyd's ZX Spinners, we would move it to Bob for the new name. But maybe we would leave a redirect behind because they're very different titles, and the Bob is still a source dragon of motion. So somebody who searches source dragon of motion could get redirected to Bob and not be confused. So that would be an example of when you would leave a redirect. Anyways, I'm not going to push move because this one does not need to be fixed. It's supposed to be like this. But that's an example of how to move a page and the specifications of doing so. Alright, time to look at something super useful. It's quintessential, but a little bit confusing, so don't be daunted. It's called page history. Now, the wiki has a 15-year history, and this card even is actually 15 years old. I mean, this page is 15 years old because this is some older content. Now, if you want to see who did what, because all of us build on each other. When you make an edit, somebody else makes an edit, it all accumulates in a page over time, and policies change. The way things look change as well. And if I want to look at past versions of something, kind of like the Internet Archive for web pages, but for wiki pages instead, I would look at a character history. So I go here to the 3 dots, and instead of clicking source or moving like we learned already, I'll go between them and click history. This has a complete log with all the dates of who edited what, at what time of day, on what day, what year. It tells you how much they contributed. So it looks like they added content versus Brandini ultimately took out content here with 20 bytes of data gone, right? It also gives you the option to undo an edit. So if somebody made a vandalizing edit, you could report them to a moderator, but you could also undo it to help out. You could thank users. That's a new feature we enabled, where you can send them a little bit of gratitude. But basically, you can see the edit summaries here too, and that's what I was talking about earlier. Anyways, to observe a revision, you compare the revisions that you select. So you select them with bullet points as you saw. It looks like here, this was a recent edit I made earlier today, where I changed the C from capital to lowercase to fix the link. So this is the latest version right here that you can see in the visual, and you can see what was removed in red and what was added here in green. If I actually go to the older edit, I can see what it was like before this. Notice how the link was broken, and I fixed it by moving the capitalization. So you look on the left for what was taken out or moved, and you look on the right for what was added, or where the destination of a move of information was to. To really get a full grasp of what it means to be on the workforce of the Ninjago Wiki, you're going to need to learn about the various pages we host, quote-unquote, behind the scenes. These pages serve special functions and can help you with various tasks. Now, the first namespace for this would be special pages, which can be obtained by typing special with a semicolon. Then you could type in the name of the page you're going to. Some of the most useful ones include recent changes. Recent changes is where all staffers who are moderators and where we all go to see what's been edited recently. It shows a complete list that's able to be refined with filters and color coding to see what's going on and who made recent edits. It's a very useful tool for seeing what people are working on, how you can contribute, and if somebody is making any vandal edits that you can report. The next special page that's extremely useful is Special Preferences. Preferences, which I won't scroll too far down on because it has my email and stuff, has all kinds of amazing settings for you to edit. So this would include everything from, editing your signature to changing how your notifications work, your watch list, the way that your recent changes shows up by default, and so on and so forth. Another special page that is extremely useful would be categories. I use this a lot if I need to see what categories exist. Optionally, you could also just use the category namespace and search for it. So if I knew what I was looking for already and I just didn't know the exact name or spelling, maybe I'm looking for 2011 sets, for example. And I see, the S is lowercase, right? So the categories is extremely useful as well. You're also going to want to be able to see project pages. Project pages are another addition besides just special pages. They're their own space. You could type in project on any wiki to return whatever that wiki uses. We use Ninjago Wiki as our project, so you can also type that in to get your results. Now, by far the most important project page includes votes. The vote page is where everything is handled on the wiki in terms of decision making. We use a democratic system with a majority rule system. Most votes get 3 days, which is indicated by a countdown here. Right now, there's one that they're trying to move life to life source to clarify it as being separate from the newly clarified element name for Lloyd. But what you can see here is image votes have slightly different rules, and their general rules as well. You can read up on them. It is important that before voting you have certain requirements of eligibility. That also applies to request for rights and editor of the month voting. Starting with request for rights, this is another project page. This template will show you when it's updated who's applied for rights, which is ranks and permissions on the wiki. They have certain requirements which are listed here. It has voting regulations, as well as requirements to vote or nominate. Although you don't nominate staffers, but what you do nominate is the editor of the month. Editor of the month voting. This is a page where you can nominate fellow users to recognize them for their contributions. It's a wonderful way to recognize people for their hard work over the course of a given month. And then there's its main page, which has several sub-pages, including /voting attributed to it. And the main page goes over some of the rules and regulations there, as well as a history of nominations. There's also some really other important pages. By far the most or second most important project page, because votes is pretty good, would be the manual of style. We talked a little bit about this earlier. We're going to talk about it more in the future. Not in this video, but in the future. We talked about how this goes over the rules and regulations of editing, every little formatting guideline and whatnot to keep our pages consistent and to ensure quality. Extending from this, there is a policy page. That would be Ninjago Wiki or project policy. This includes rules that you might want to be aware of about user conduct, staff member rights, as well as anything that could infringe upon those. We would also want to be talking a little bit about tasks. Tasks is pretty important, so we're going to go to project tasks. Let's say you're a user who's applying for a staff rank and needs a certain amount of edits, or you're trying to become eligible to vote and become an active member of the community. Alternatively, maybe you're just trying to get more edits for some other reason. This is a wonderful place to come. The task page lists out a bunch of general tasks right here, and they have all these different things that are specific to the Ninjago Wiki. There are general things like ensure image quality and resolution, but there's also things like, for example, this one, add numbers for each issue of Garmadon and Shatterspin in the appearances section, formatted a certain way. They're very specific to our wiki, so they give you a really good idea of where to start and where to get going on your editing if you're looking for something to do or you don't know where to pitch into. These ones are I used to get a lot of edits through these when I was doing my first run through staff, where you can take the links of the new title. So this is called Pyramid of Mumbo the 5th. So this is the new title of the page, but before somebody left a redirect on accident. That's why we have to be careful with page moves, as we were talking earlier. The links will show the old title of the page, what still links to it. It looks like there's 24 items that still link to the old title. So you fix the link and get rid of the redirect eventually. So that's a pretty good way of getting some fixes in there because they're pretty fast edits. Another thing that's hosted on the tasks page is our operations section. Operations are something that I worked on imposing, got the idea from some other wikis. And it's basically, you can set a vote to establish an operation, which gets its own subpage that extends from tasks. And they are sometimes multi-year task forces that go and do a specific function. So each one has its description, name, subpage, and then it shows who's managing it. This one's so old, it has my old signature. We're not done with it. We probably should be. Another thing that you could look at with Project Space is all the kind of fun things on the side. We have a lot of history, and the Ninjago Wiki About covers some of that. So if you go to Project About, you could see a little bit of a brief history. It only goes up to 2022. We're going to be working on this in the future, updating it, getting new stuff in, but there's a lot of cool stuff here. Something new we've also worked on is establishing a staff page. This is a place for staffers to have a bio in one centralized location, instead of having to learn about them from interaction only. You can know a little bit about them in advance. So we got Ninjago Wiki staff. This is a wonderful place because not only does it show you based on rank It'll show you information such as their contact for Discord. It'll have their talk page linked. Some of them have included their time zone to help judge when you should reach out to a member, and it kind of describes a little bit of a brief history. We've also worked extensively on the tenure lists. We are 15 years old as a wiki, as I've stated numerous times, and so it's important to document our history, see who came before, and what we're joining. In summary, I hope that you learned a lot about editing on the Ninjago Wiki from this tutorial, and have found the motivation to start editing for the good of the Ninjago community. On the wiki, we prosper from communication, understanding, and peer review, which has kind of helped us build a unique internet culture since 2010. Numerous YouTubers, fanfiction writers, artists, everybody doing creative works typically has to rely on us, our graphics, our resources, our information, our lists, to be able to create more accurate content that's true to the franchise, true to what they want to see and envision. And by contributing to it, you can be a wonderful part of the backgrounds that makes it all happen. I am overjoyed that you decided to make yourself a part of this journey, and on behalf of the Ninjago Wiki, I hope that you go on to become a strong and capable editor. Thank you.